Hey everyone, I'm Lisa Lippert, and I'm here to show you today how to do your very own gemstone model. Before that, I wanted to congratulate Breyer on their 75th anniversary. What an accomplishment. I'm so happy to be included and honored in the Diamond Jubilee, so I hope that you enjoy this and feel free to reach out with any questions or any ideas that you might need. If you're stuck, I'll be happy to help at any point. Most of all, have fun. That's what it's all about, right? Okay, so let's get started. Okay, I'm going to go over with you a few of the supplies. You may have already seen the list. If not, it's pretty simple what you need. You're first, of course, going to need some gemstones. I do recommend getting some little container or something that you can keep track of. Try to either clip off a piece of the label from your gemstones to tell you what color, what stock number, and what size. Because if you run out, it's going to be difficult to find the exact same thing if you don't have all this information. I've learned that the hard way, unfortunately. So now I try to keep it streamlined. These little jewelry containers work very well to keep these gems in. It's just easier to keep track of things and makes it so much better when you need quick reference. What other things you will as need as well? You need some black primer. It can be any brand, any kind, whatever you want. Anything works. I do recommend the black primer because it makes the gemstones like pop really good. If you want to use a different color, that's totally up to you. I've also done models with white primer, but I do prefer the black now. Then, of course, when we're done with your model, you will need some kind of gloss finish. Don't use matte because it'll wipe out all the shine that you get from the gemstones and kind of make your work for nothing. So any kind of gloss sealer works well. I've used this in a couple of other different kinds, and they all seem to have the same effect. So whatever you prefer, it's totally up to you. Then, of course, we're going to need some rhinestone glue. You can find this pretty much at any craft store or online. I've only used this brand. However, I'm not saying that others don't work, so it's whatever you prefer, but I do know this works very well. So I'm going to stick with this. Why fix it if it's not broken, right? Okay, and that does come in different sizes. I'll show you. I recently ran onto this size, and this actually was a game changer for me when it came to stablemates. And it's all I will use now for the stablemates because the tip is so much smaller. Of course, your gemstones have to be smaller for a stablemate, and it works so much better than this big bottle. With that being said, you can use the big bottle, but it's just a lot easier without it. And then a few of the tools that you're going to need. You'll need some kind of tray to put your gems in. These actually come from the 5D diamond paintings that I do, which is kind of how I got the idea to try this on a model. Any lid will work as long as it has some kind of little lip, because when your gems are not turned the right way, all you gotta do is kind of give it a shake and most of them will turn around for you. That works really well. A few of the other tools that I have and you would need would be a glass pencil or wax pencil. This tip will help you pick up the rhinestones. You barely touch it and they'll pick them up really well. This particular one also has a metal end, which I find really handy, especially if you are trying to get like under a tail or under a mane, kind of got to push the gem up there. This works very well. It's skinny, it gets it up in there no problem, and just so much easier to maneuver. So there's a few different kinds of the wax pencils that have these ends. You don't have to have it, but it does make it a lot easier. Another one, this is a brand new one. It has a smaller tip, so it's easier for the smaller gems. And again, with the metal tip on this side. I also like to keep just a regular generic wax pencil. It picks up the bigger gems easier than a smaller tip would. This is my go-to guy for the most part. You can see I've used it a lot. They're super cheap online too. And then the other thing I would recommend, but it's not necessary, I also got a dotting tool for like fingernails. You can find most of these supplies in the fingernail section if you're looking online. I will use like one tip of this to move the gems around if I need to, but this other tip, I will add just a tip, just a little bit of that rhinestone glue and let it dry. And this works so well for picking up the really, really tiny gems. It makes it so much easier. Just tap it and it'll pick it up. And then you can just set it right onto the horse. Of course, that fell off, but it won't normally. When they're sitting on the table, it's a lot easier to pick them up. So that's the basics of what you need. I'm going to get everything set up and then we will start with the technique. Okay, so we're going to start out right now with one of the classic models. I did forget to say you can do this on any size. For a beginner, I would recommend a classic because it's not the biggest, it's not the smallest, but there's plenty of room to work with. Again, that's totally up to you. I actually started on a stablemate and it took a little more time than what I thought it would, but now I've got the process streamlined. It doesn't take as long as it did before. Um, the size and amount of gems will vary because it depends on what you choose for a model. These particular gems for this guy are 4mm, so it's not going to take as many. I've done a traditional Othello and a traditional Ashquar, and they were, I believe, 3mm gems. And the Ashquar took around 6,500 and the Othello around 8,500. So my advice is to always order extra. You know, if you don't need them all, you can use them to bedazzle something later or whatever, but make sure you have enough. It just saves a headache later. Okay, so what we're going to do, I've actually decided to do this as like a splash white pattern. I've kind of got it a little bit started right now, but we're going to go ahead and do some parts of the face and then I'll kind of move down to the neck. I like to start from the head and work down and back. It's just kind of easier for me. I've kind of done it a little bit on this side with the black markings. Um, the reason I do that is because these gems likely will not fit flush on the model. And when that happens, I try my best to hide the ones that aren't exactly flush down here underneath, like under the tail or on the belly. So if a person's looking at them, they don't see that part. They just look at the main part and they're like, oh, you know, that doesn't sit exactly right. So this is a good way to kind of camouflage that. For this particular model, I would choose to try to hide it up under the tail because it is a rearing model. So when they're looking at it, they will see the underside and that makes it a little more difficult. But like I said, you can hide under here, like make everything flush. And if you need to stack one back here or it's not quite sitting exactly right, they're not going to see it as much. Okay, so let's get started. I did forget to mention you will need a paper towel handy. And that's because sometimes the tip of this gets excess glue on it. And when that happens, you just take that paper towel, wipe it off. Don't be afraid to use a lot of glue. The reason is these gemstones need something to stick to, and a little bit is going to dry and they're just going to fall off. So like I said, I've decided to do this as a splash white. So we are going to give the glue a squeeze. I don't like to put gemstones on the nostrils, inner ears, or eyes. That is totally up to you if you want to do it. I just like it better without. Okay, so right here, I am working on the white part. Like I said, it's going to be a splash model. So, maybe put glue on for, I don't know, a couple inches so it doesn't dry while you are trying to put the gems on. Okay, and I'm going to be using this white or clear. And we're going to put some of these gemstones on. Since I've already started, we're going to start kind of like right here and just use your tool, pick up a gemstone, and just very easily lay it onto your model. Once it hits the glue, it should stick and pull away from your pencil. Sometimes you might get a little bit of glue residue on your pencil, and it may make the gem to where it does not want to come off as easily. That's fine. What I do, especially with this, is just kind of give it a rub on my desk or on something like maybe some sandpaper, and it gets that glue residue off of there and makes it easy for you to go ahead and complete putting the gems on. This is not as tedious as what people might think it would be. With my ashquar that I did, I think it took about 2.5 to 3 weeks to finish it, and that was with smaller gems than these are. And the Othello, I believe it took around a month or maybe slightly over a month to do, but that was not working on it nonstop. That was off and on because I do have another full-time job. Um, one good thing about this, one positive thing is that, well, two actually, um, you don't have to wear gloves for these. And that's awesome because I don't know if you're like me, but gloves just get in the way so much. And with so many customs, it's a necessary thing. And I just really like that you don't have to stop and just put on gloves. You can, just go with the flow, put these gems on and have a ball. Another good thing is if you're a busy person, a mom, working mom, whatever, working person, um, you can do this in sections. You don't have to start this model and finish it in the same day. You can do work on it for 15, 20 minutes and set it aside and then come back 3, 4 hours later and work on it. Or you can, work in sections and give it an hour break and then come back and work in another section and just, go at your own pace. There's no rush. I will say that you do need to kind of pay attention what sections you've worked in because it does take the glue a little bit of time to set up. It says on the bottle that it takes 24 hours to fully dry. However, I found about an hour is a safe amount of time to be able to touch a section that you've done. Otherwise, if you accidentally grab the horse and it's not quite dry enough, it will shift the gemstones, and that's another headache you just don't want to have. So see, we've just, laid these gemstones onto that glue, and it's easy to see where this glue is at because you can see the white around the gemstones. Hold it up a little closer. Um, this glue does dry perfectly clear, so don't worry about if you have too much on it. Like I said, too much is better than not enough. Um, you're just going to keep adding. And if for some reason the glue happens to dry while you're working on a section, just put some more right over the top of it. It's not going to cause any issues at all. So I'm going to go over here and do right above this eye. Now, if you decide to keep working on this, remember that you have done, just put these gemstones on over here. So I don't recommend putting your glue exactly right up next to that area. Just get it really close because you can slide the gemstones over to be flush. If you don't, and if you put this glue right up next to them, you're going to hit it and it's going to shift them or pick them up, and you're just not going to have fun with that at all. Learning curves, right? I mean, I've done enough of these now to know exactly what I need to watch out for and be careful with. But it's actually really relaxing to me. Like I said, I started out with the 5D diamond paintings that most of you probably know about or have actually done. And I was like, maybe I can, apply this to a model or something. Oops, sorry, I hit the camera. And it actually came out really decent. My first little guy that I did, I actually named him like, what was it, bubblegum drops or something like that, because I use all different colors of these little beads on him, and he looked like a gum machine had like vomited all over him. But he went to a really neat home, and the little girl that got him loves him, and that's all that matters, right? And then after that, I'm like, yeah, maybe I should, do this a little bit more and maybe try some realistic patterns, some more fantasy patterns, and get something laid out. And it worked. And here I am now. You might want to use a reference photo. You don't have to. It's totally up to you. You can do solid colors. You can do Appaloosa patterns. That's a little more difficult, but it can be done. You can, do the splash, pinto, paint, whatever you want to do. Use your imagination. Realistic colors, not realistic colors. Make it all yours and make it unique. That's what makes it shine the most. So I'm going to go ahead and finish a little bit of this face, and then I'll move down to the other side and show you some work on the neck. And before we end this, I'll show you some of the models I'm in progress with or have completed, so you kind of know what they look like when they're done. Like, okay, right here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a little gap right there that I cannot get those gems flush. And that's just part of this process. It's going to happen. It can't be changed. I've tried using multiple sizes of gemstones on the model, and for me, it just doesn't look as good. So I opt to just leave it as it is. And like I said, when the glue dries, it will dry clear. So that will just show black behind it. And it actually sets off the gemstones a little bit better, in my opinion. So I don't fret about it so much. But I know it can be frustrating. You know, you want something round to fit flat and flush on something that's not round, and it just doesn't work well like that. Finally got it in my head that I can't control it. I just have to go with the flow, and that's what has worked for me. Okay, you might be able to see I'm getting to where I don't have as many gemstones turned over the right way. So what I'll do is I'll just give this a little shake, and then they flip over, and it's really nice. You don't have to stop and flip every one of them over because that would take ages. So yeah, we're just picking them up and, you know, going slow and being careful when we come up to the other side where we just put on. I just barely put the gems next to them. They may not even be touching, but they might be just barely. You can't tell a difference if they are or aren't. Okay, so we're gonna get this white part continued. This guy is not gonna take long because like I said, I'm using bigger gems and it's going pretty fast. So, you know, if you want something just to get it done and try it for the first time, the bigger gems would work. I normally use 3 or 4 millimeter gems for the classics and traditionals. Anything other than that, I would recommend 2 to 3 millimeter. I'm actually working on one that I will show you briefly. Um, to where the gemstones are way smaller. And they were supposed to be 2 millimeters, but they're actually between 1.5 and 1.9. So they're really tiny. In fact, I'll show you them right now compared to what I'm using. So you can see these look like little bitty dots of pepper. They're super tiny and harder to pick up. And it takes more of them to get the model done. But it's a smaller model, so it works well. I think it makes the details work a little bit better. Okay, so we have um, we have done this white part. You can kind of see, and I will go back, you know, of course, and do this, fill this in. Um, I don't know why I do it, but I usually leave the ears for last, which is kind of contradictory. But okay, from here, this has actually started, well, no, yeah, it started a little bit to dry, so I feel more comfortable putting glue right up here by it. You can put the glue on top of the gems, no problem. Like once again, it dries clear, it doesn't mess them up at all. So that's not an issue. Okay, so yeah, do a section about this big, and like I said, be generous with this glue. Um, you can't get too much. So with me gonna do that splash pattern, I kind of didn't do it straight, you know. I want it to be a little more jagged. So I'm gonna get the black gems now. And I will tell you the black gems are a little bit harder to tell when they're flipped upright or not. And I've learned this the hard way. I was going along just putting these gems on, no problem, and they were smaller. And then I was like, you know what, that doesn't look exactly right. So I uh, stopped and checked it out. And I'd actually put some of these on upside down. Embarrassing, but true. The black ones just do give me fits, but I think they make the horses look so pretty. And this was a perfect time to show you guys. I was so thrilled when I got asked to do this because I mean it's the Diamond Jubilee, so why not have some pretty gemstones? And also you'd be surprised, but these gems really make the models heavy. Um, I'm shocked, like, I'm totally shocked when I'm done how much heavier they feel. But it kinda helps them stay upright too. If you got a tippy model, that extra weight will kinda hold it in place. These are very durable. I have an ashquar in my own collection that I have dropped more times than I care to really admit to, and I've not lost one gem. I've not lost, any kind of I have not had any issues with the finish or with the gem sticking. So luckily, they're pretty durable. Now I wouldn't say, go throw them around or smash them into anything or anything like that, of course. But if you bump them or they accidentally drop, it's going to be okay. All right, let me get a little closer here. So here's the little bend of the neck. I need to fit a black gem into there. There's not quite enough room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it in there as best as I can. And then here comes the tools. This is perfect for pushing that gemstone down in there. Get the glue on it, and when it dries, it will set there and it will stay. That's what those little tools are perfect for, because with this thing, you're not going to get in that area to push it down. It's just not going to work. You'll end up with glue everywhere and the gemstone sticking to places you don't want it to stick to. I've ended up with gemstones in my purse, on my neck when I didn't know they were there, just all over the place. I can't tell you how many that I picked up and vacuumed up from my floor because they like to fly off the tool sometimes. Okay, let's see here. We're almost done with this black part, but yeah, it's really simple. Doesn't take a lot of concentration. Just, go with the flow. Really easy to do. And like I said, it's moving pretty fast. We've already got a good portion of it done. Oh, and another another thing, maybe this is why I do it. I said I avoid the ears until the end. See how I'm resting my pinky on there? That's to give me a more steady hand when I place these. Maybe that is, the reason why I save it till last. I never thought about that, but I find myself using it, so maybe that's why. You just barely set it on that glue. You don't have to smush it down at all. It's not gonna have an issue coming off of your tool, as long as your tool is clean, like I said. Another thing I will mention and suggest is if you are doing a pinto pattern, not so much this, as this is a splash, so there's a big, distinct difference between the two colors. But if you're doing it like a Tobiano pattern or an Oviro pattern, I would recommend don't put the white parts on first. The reason is, okay, say for instance, we want a white patch here. So we put the clear or white gems on. Looks great. But when we're going back and putting the color up next to that patch, 90% of the time, it's not going to fit right. And I've done it that way, and it was an absolute nightmare. So as I go, if I'm doing the Tobiano or something else like that, I will go ahead and work down and back. Do the whites as you come to it in the pattern. So if I'm wanting like with black all the way down here and then a white patch here, I'm going to do the black and then start doing the white and keep doing the white and the black until I'm ending with that white pattern and then go back to the black. Just do it as you go, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult to fit the gemstones in there exactly like you need them to be. Okay, so we're going to set this guy aside and let him dry, and I'll go back and work on him later on. I will have all of these models finished and ready to show off after Fun Day, so feel free to watch for those. I can't wait to see your creations. It's going to be awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a little bit of the tiny, tiny gems. Let me get everything ready here. Let me close up the other glue. Okay, like I said, same brand. Everything's the same on that. The only difference is size. Um, this is also a really, really great technique. If you have body models that you need to use, or if you have scratches, things you want to hide, you can kind of look on this one. I had a primer issue. I don't know if you can see the roughness or whatever. But yeah, I had a primer issue with this, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get it right. So I decided I'm going to make him a gemstone model, and that's exactly what I did. Now, the exception with those white markings is if you want white legs. The reason that you don't want to put those on last is because you need this marking to end at the hoof. So you will want to put those white markings on first and work up from there. And like I said, hide it underneath if you need to. Um, I wanted to make that clear. Also, the little face marking, I would do that first and then go and work back. So I've done a little bit on this neck over here. This is going to be a solid model aside from the hoofs and the legs and the little face marking. So I went ahead and started putting gems on the neck. I will do a section here. And what I will do with this one is I will go back and do the head up here before I do the other side. So I know I'll be able to fit everything in there. With this technique, you do not want to put as much glue on a bigger space. It doesn't take as much for these gems to stick. So I try not to put a lot on at a time. And like I said, I'm using my little dotting tool, and it just has a little bit of dried glue on the end of it. And it's perfect for picking up these tiny, tiny, tiny gems. These can be a real pain if you're trying to use the bigger tools. They just don't like to come off with those tools really well, and you end up with the glue all over the end of the tool, and it's a headache. Um, this will sometimes, like, the glue won't work as well, the dried glue, so I will just like use my fingers and roll around the tip and get that dried glue off of there, and then put some fresh on there and let it dry, and that works well. So you see, I'm not using nearly as much glue on this one. You can, but your little gems are going to get lost while you're trying to put them on. Um, you will need to periodically check to make sure that your glue is not drying. If it is, feel free to add plenty more. Like right here in this area, I already know I'm going to have to add some more because it's already starting to dry. So I'm going to need to do that before I put some gems down in that specific area, or they will not stick. So let me get a little bit more glue right there. Just put it right on top of the other. I'm going to go ahead and put some more while I'm there, since I have it out. Give these a little shake. I've been trying to decide if I wanted to do a kind of like a galaxy themed model, but I really don't know yet in my head how I want that to turn out. So for now, I'm just working on the ones that are already in progress and the ones I'm starting. Get those out of the way, and then I'll go from there. You might have seen me just then. If I get a little bit of glue, wet glue on the end of my tool, instead of grabbing the paper towel, I kind of just wipe it on my hand. That works. Whatever you find is easiest for you. It's non-toxic. It washes off. However, I will tell you, it does not come off of clothes. So if you happen to get some of this glue on your clothes, you're pretty much out of luck. It's not going to come. It's going to dry, and there's going to be a spot there, and it's going to feel rough whenever you touch it. It will not wash out. So maybe you want to work in older clothes or have an apron, something like that, to where you can, be in something you don't have to worry about ruining if a drop gets on it or whatever. Okay, so you're seeing I'm just placing these little gems on the neck, going pretty fast. Once again, it doesn't take long once you know what you're doing. Let's get up here. On the stablemates, I will wait until they are dry before I work somewhere else because it's just too easy to grab here while you're trying to turn it over and not realize you've hit the gems and then you mess them all up and they're a pain. So be careful with that. If you're doing a stablemate, like I said, make sure it dries at least an hour before you start in another section and touch that area. So that shows you how to do the little guys. Set him up and put this glue up for a second. And then we are going to do a little work on one that I've almost got completed. Let's do work on another stablemate. This guy was an alcohol ink model that I did. I didn't care for how he turned out. I like the colors, but I just didn't care for him. So I decided I'm gonna make him a gemstone horse, and that's what I did. Um, you can see here he does not have primer, and they stick just fine. There's no issue with them coming off. They're just fine, no problems. I've decided to do him in all the same color, just because I like how the colors peek out from underneath and coincide with this color scheme. These are, I believe, called amber. Yeah, it's an amber gemstone. And I think they go so well with his underneath color. So figured why not? Let's try that. Since I'm using, I believe it is 3mm gems on this one, I'm gonna go back to the bigger bottle. I'm gonna put some on. We're gonna do, let's see, a little bit on this side. So I'm just gonna put this glue up next to the ones that I've already got on there. You might see a little of this gold coming out. That's because the alcohol ink that I used was gold colored and it comes off on everything. So that's another reason I wanted to kind of use him as this kind of model, because every time I touched it, I got gold everywhere. So we'll just cover that up and not have to worry about that. So yeah, I'm gonna keep doing this one, and once I get the legs done, I will go back and do underneath in case, like I said, I have to hide something or a gem doesn't fit flush. I'll make sure it's on the underside to where it's not going to be visible, or not very visible, I should say, not visible at all. Um, if a judge or somebody picks it up and looks at the back, of course, they're going to see. Okay, see right there? I accidentally touched the glue into my tool. So what I'm going to do is just wipe it off on my hand. But if it gets to where it will not pick up the gems, just give it a quick little rub on something and it will get that layer of glue off and you'll be able to pick them up just fine. Of course, you can always use the other tools as well. Like I said, I use that one because it's kind of my go-to. I'm more familiar and comfortable with it, but any of them can be used. That's the one with the more blunt tip. This one is the more pointed tip. I have not used it very much, but it still works just the same concept. Okay. I really, really, really am anxious to see all the projects that you guys are able to do with this technique. And I think for the most part, once you get it started, I think that you'll end up liking it, and it might be with something you want to do more than one of. Start small and go slow and then go from there. Okay. Right here, I'm having an issue with the gems fitting correctly, so I will do my best. And I picked up two. I will do my best to just kind of fit them in there as best as I can. Try to, mask it as good as possible. This one is not as hard because like I said, the colors underneath match basically the gemstones, so it's kind of not a big deal if they peek through a little bit. So yeah, so after this, what I'm going to do is with this model, I will go ahead and finish the legs. This particular one, it's really hard to get inside with your tools, which is where this comes in handy. You can just kind of move them around. So after I do the legs, I will go ahead and do the tail, and then I will end back here. I'll do this, and so I'll be ending somewhere in here on the underside. So that's kind of what that guy looks like. Very sparkly, looks really good in light and sunlight. Sunlight really makes these guys pop big time. Okay, so I'm gonna put him away, and then I'm going to get out one that's almost completed. At the end, I will stop and show you all these guys better and let you see what's going on, what I've been working on. So this one's all done except for the mane. And I kind of just wanted to show you here, since it's a pinto pattern, I'm going to have a bicolored mane. And I've kind of already started a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and finish this with the white, and then the black will curve down here. And I'll end the black probably, right here. So this part will have some black in it. And then this will go back to white again. I'm going to do just a little bit of that, not a lot, because I don't want to run out of time to show you everything, that I've got going on. That's almost done. So I'm actually going to, I've got the white out, so I'm going to put a few white gems on. This horse is completely dry, so I don't have to worry about not touching certain places. On this part and on any tail that might have a lot of ridges, use a ton of glue. You need to get the glue down in all those ridges and valleys in case you have to fit a gemstone in there. Otherwise, it's not going to stick. And here again, I've used a lid for this one just because it's what I grabbed first. Anything with a lip like that works well. I had a little bit on the pattern I needed to finish the white, and so that's why I was sticking it down there. I'm hoping that you can see this okay. So a ton of glue on this part. And this glue is not that expensive, so don't feel bad. Like, don't fret if you have to use a lot of it, because it's not outrageous. I think a big bottle like what I just used is like $12 maybe, give or take a little bit, and that will last you a long time. I'd say you could probably get 4 to 5 traditional size models out of that one bottle, if not more. Depends kind of on what your models are. Like the Ashkars are, smaller traditional, so you could do probably more like 6 with that. But that's, totally up to you and what models you want to use. Any model can work. I would say that before you start, take a look at all the angles and areas that you're going to have to get into and decide if this is a good model to use or not. Well, every model can be done. Some will be harder than others. So maybe start with something simple like a lady phase, pretty basic stance, something that's not, too outrageous with the hair and stuff like that, to where you don't have to do a lot of weird angles. But, hey, if you want to challenge yourself, go for it. You don't learn unless you try, right? So yeah, I'm just going to keep on putting those there. We're going to slide a little over here. Goes really fast once you understand what you're doing. Okay, I'm going to put this here. Didn't want to let go on that one. So we're just kind of getting up into the main area. This guy, I might have maybe a day's worth of work left on him to do, but that's not solid working on him. That's off and on, of course. Yeah, my job just doesn't agree with the fact that I would just like to quit and do this all the time. They don't see it that way, so I have to, just do this in the side. Though I think I'd love it if I did it all the time. That would be wonderful. Okay, so we're almost done with this little white area. Okay, so see right here, I kind of want to move this gem a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so you can see, they're all there, glued on. I'm going to set it aside to dry. And I am going to get things ready for a little show and tell. Hold on just a minute. Okay, so these are going to show you a little bit better exactly, what we did and how the horse is probably going to look when it's done. And see the face better. And look how much it shines. Just that black sparkle. Even the black's wonderful. You probably saw, that you can use opaque gems, which these are. You can use the more like diamond type gems, which these are. You can mix it up. Obviously, I've done it with this one. Whatever works for you. Okay, so there's that guy we worked on. And then here's the little Arabian. You can see it's still white up here where we did the glue, but it's starting to dry, so it won't take too much longer. He's going to be, like I said, solid black aside from the socks and the little marking on his face. I think he'll really be pretty when we're done. He might take a little bit longer just because he's got the smaller gems, but it won't be horrible. Then we had our pretty little amber colored stablemate. Okay, I forgot and just touched this like I told you not to. And I came up with the gem on my hand. That's not a big deal. I can just put more glue on there and add it back. But I am going to use this little tool and kind of scoot these gems up so I don't lose the pattern. Of course, leave it to me to do something that I said not to do. Kind of how it works, right? That guy won't take much more longer at all. Maybe a day. Shouldn't be long. Okay, and then I am going to show you my pretty little purple ash car that I did. I did this guy a long time ago. It was my first traditional. I chose not to paint the tail and mane just because I liked kind of how this blue purple color change looked on him. You can do whatever you want with mane and tail, eyes, ears, all that stuff. That's your choice, whatever works for you. Like I said, I've had this guy a long time. I've not lost one gem at all on him. And I thought about redoing and going back and doing the mane and tail back. Just like him the way he is. So I'll probably keep him. He's been in my collection forever. And he'll probably stay with me forever. So you can kind of see here. You can't see on this guy if there's mistakes under here. I mean, I really hid him pretty well. There are gems that are kind of on top of others down here, but you can't see it. So, it lends itself to masking the mistakes pretty well. Easy, not to fret about. Don't stress about it. You can get it worked in there just fine. And then the Arabian that I probably will also keep. I haven't decided. My favorite mold, so it's hard to get rid of these guys. So he has the Tobiano pattern. And like I said, if you're doing this, work as you go. Don't try putting these little things in first and then working the white around them. Do it as you go because it's not going to fit. And I have decided to do the mane and tail on this guy just because I wanted something, that looked a little different. I did the hooves as well. The hooves you can either paint natural or paint them whatever color you want, or you can just leave them as they are, leave them flat black without gems, totally up to you. You can probably see I like the little snips. I have that on a couple of mine. He's pretty close to being done, just the mane, and then he'll be finished. It is hard to initial these or sign these, so I try to do it on the bottom of the hooves. And then the last one I have is this guy, and he is absolutely completely finished. I did opt for the gems on the hooves on this one. To see that underneath, there's gems everywhere, up in these crevices, everywhere. It's completely covered. I went with the more like sparkly gems for him. And you can't really see too much like where the nostril and the eyes and the inner ears aren't done. It just doesn't show up that much. You're welcome to paint those. You're welcome to leave them as they are. You're welcome to put gems on them however you want to do. These little blaze on the face. Again, he was a pinto. So I worked as I went. I started from the head and worked down and added these colors as I went. It's a little more difficult if you don't have a reference photo to use because you got to have a really good memory and kind of get in your head what pattern you were going for, so where you know like to put the colors and where you need to put the white. I think he's a really pretty guy and you can just see how he sparkles. He is probably one of my favorites that I did that's not the Ashquar. I haven't decided if I'll keep him or not, maybe. I did do an oopsie. When I was doing him, I did not intend for this marking to be here. However, I started doing the tail and I forgot that I needed it to be at least bicolored, if not all the way white. And I just started putting color on it. So I'm like, you know what? I've got to go in and add this like, little circle marking by the tail to make it look real. And luckily, I had enough room there that I could do it. Um, it's a good thing that I didn't already have that completely done, or else that would have not looked right. I did do the bicolored mane. You can kind of see here. So I kind of try to go like where the markings are dark on the neck, I would make the markings dark in the mane, like normal horse. So yeah, he's a pretty guy, and I hope that you guys have really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed teaching you, and I cannot wait to see everything that you come up with. Please tag me, reach out to me. I'd love to see your projects. As always, if there's any questions or you need help with anything, I'm here. No problem at all. So thank you, everybody. And I hope that you have a wonderful National Fun Day. And again, happy 75th to Breyer.